Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise.
Welcome to Stop Now. I'm Nate.
And I'm Melissa. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey Melissa, how have you been? I know it's been a cold February. It's been an interesting February as we are slowly moving our way through this brand new year. But how have you been since the last time we talked?
I've been okay, Nate. I'm getting new furniture this week, so
Ooh.
I've been super okay. I'm excited. It's been trying to keep me warm during all these snowstorms we're getting, what seems like every other day on my side of the country, at least. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of the snow. Okay.
I think if we've learned anything over the past year, it's the importance and the significance, Melissa, of having a comfortable couch or a comfortable bed to rest in, because we've all needed a little extra rest over the past 12, 16 months.
Ugh, absolutely, absolutely. There's nothing better than coming home to a nice, comfortable bed or a couch. I sleep on my couch a lot there, Nate. So, yeah, this new couch has been loved.
I sleep on my couch too, Melissa, but probably not for the reasons why you sleep on your couch. And the less said about that, the better.
Oh, I kind of want to know what the reasons are, but maybe a different time
Let's
I'll
say
ask.
we don't have time for that. We've got a guest this week that we need to talk to. We are joined by Dr. Jim Will, and Jim is going to speak to us about his level of expertise when it comes to positive self-talk and how we can use that. We've talked a lot this past few weeks, Melissa, about human trafficking and about modern day slavery. And
Absolutely. I'm excited to, have some positivity today. So, Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience here today? We'd love to talk to you and get into some conversation.
Well, thank you, Melissa, Nate. Appreciate the invitation today. And this one hits me hard, very, very hard. Human trafficking.
mm,
My wife and I have been following it for a long time, and especially the children. And the children are the ones that very, very painful. And it's something that when talking to some people, and I'll come back to my background and tie this all in here in just a second. But I have talked to several people in the last few weeks in which their response is, "Ooh, I don't want to hear about it. Don't
mm,
talk about it. I don't want to." And I said, just because you bury your head in the sand doesn't stop the children from crying for help.
mm,
Yeah.
And I tell them that pretty emphatically because they are hurting and they are in terrible, terrible pain. And some of the things that have been happening to them are unbelievable. And the whole sex trafficking, human trafficking for slavery, for whatever the reasons, that is not what God wanted us to have. He wants us to have freedom, and He wants us to be with freedom and dignity. And this is something that I told Steve that I would be happy and honored to get to help you all who are on the front lines at the tip of the spear to be able to cope with this and to deal with it, and to also the people that are trafficked, how to help them,
mm.
and also the people that are in there, uh, helping them to be rescued. So there's really a lot of folks involved in this too. My background is it's very interesting. Um, at least from my perspective, I had no idea that I would be sitting here today visiting with you all about human trafficking and how I might be able to help. Um, when I was growing up, it was interesting. I asked my dad when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I said, "Dad, why can't everybody get along?" And I
Mm.
remember he was out in the backyard weeding and doing some yard work. And I had my arms around him and he was sweating. And I said, "Daddy, why can't everybody get along?" And he looked at me and he kind of like, wow, for a 5-year-old,
Hmm.
that's a pretty heavy question. And he looked at me, he said, "Jimmy, it's called greed." And it's because people are greedy. And
Mm.
that stuck with me. And another thing that stuck with me was that he was in World War II. He was a captain in the army. And I said, Dad, tell me about the war. And I remember him looking at me and he said, Jimmy, there's nothing glamorous about war. War is hell. And those two things, amongst other things, really stuck in my mind. And that's really what we're in right now is a cyber war. It's a spiritual war. It's a war against, um, the, quite frankly, the devil and the satanic forces that are trafficking people and hurting them to their pleasure. And it's greed. And so those are a couple of things we'll touch on. So here I grow up, and I was never a very good student. I only attended school for for recess. And if it weren't for recess, I probably would have dropped out by the second grade.
Mm.
And but fortunately, and my parents insisted that I stay in. So I went on and I went to the University of Oklahoma in 1969, and and I was wondering, uh, my head was spinning. I had a professor. What did Dr. Gordon used to tell me that my ties caused seizures,
Mm.
and I had some rather fancy ties, and he said, Dr. Will, he said those ties caused me seizures, and I went to a straight navy blue tie once, and he said that's still causing me seizures.
Mm.
Oh
I think he
gosh.
was having some issues there. So anyway, here I was going to school, didn't know what I was going to do with life, and I went on and I got my bachelor's degree in special education. So I worked with kids who were abused and hurt and disturbed children for the most part. And I taught 5 years at a state hospital in Norman, Oklahoma. And then I went on and was still in school. And a professor of mine, a graduate assistant, he said, so Jim, what are you going to do now? And I said, well, I guess I'll find a job. And he said, well, Dr. Piper has got 13 scholarships, fellowships, and you might go talk to him. And he had 13 to award around the whole country. He and I clicked really quick, and he said he honored me with one of those fellowships for my master's degree.
Mm.
And this was interesting as well, because looking back and reflecting on it, I realized it was in the fellowship, and this is the early 1970s. It was about learning disabilities and educational psychology. Well, you think about this now. You guys are probably too young for this, but we didn't have a lot of these labels that are placed on people now, and we've become accustomed to those labels. And those things can be double-edged swords, because all of a sudden, if I label, I want us, if we get nothing out of this today, other than if we're going to label somebody, make sure it's a good label, make sure
Yeah,
it's a
there's a lot of
positive
labels
label.
and they're not always great.
They put little voodoos. I was working over in Louisiana. I said, how many of y'all believe in voodoo? Half the daggum room raised their hand. I said, "Ooh, I better do a good job today." You know, I could have the big gym with, and I said, why does voodoo work? And they looked at me and I said, come on, why does voodoo work? And they said, because we believe in it. Now you think about it.
Mm.
Why does
Mhm.
voodoo work? And how many voodoos do you and I have that we have been dragging with us in life? And then we've been holding on to them like it's precious gold. And then we share those voodoos with our children, with our grandchildren, with our spouse, with our loved ones, with our students, with other people. So we got to be very, very careful what voodoos you and I have latched onto unbeknownst to us for the most part. And then which ones are we, but I mean, we believe in them. They are the gospel. And then which ones are helping us and which ones
Mhm.
are hurting us. So here I was in my master's degree. Dr. Piper, he came to me and he says, so Jim, are you going to go on for your doctorate? And I said, what's that? No, I didn't. I mean, I couldn't even spell doctorate. All right. And here he is asking me to go for my PhD. Well, he saw something in me that I didn't see and I didn't know I
Mhm.
had. And so he was very kind and he helped me to get my PhD at the age of 25. And I didn't think anything about that. But full disclosure, I hold the record at the University of Oklahoma for getting my PhD at the youngest age,
Oh,
25, with, but I challenge any of them to say that they got their PhD with an 11 on their ACT score.
mm,
And that's what I got. So that's another
All
myth
right
that
now.
I wish to blow out of the water, that just because a person gets a low ACT score or doesn't
mhm.
do well, I was happy with a B average. I
And
wouldn't have
you
had a B
got
average
a
except my dad
PhD
said,
still.
you will have a B average because my insurance, his insurance would go down if I had a B average. I said, oh, that's okay. I'll pay the difference. I was mowing yards. I had plenty of money. And he said, no, you will not drive the car unless you have a B average. And that's
Mm,
the only reason I had a B average. Now, I ended up with my PhD and I was able to do that with honors. I was on the President's Honor Roll and I did quite well, ended up just below a 4-point average. Now here's something else that's valuable and information and very timely here is that what happened? Did I have a brain transplant? No.
mhm.
That all of a sudden my self-talk changed. I now have a reason to study. I had a why. I wanted to do well in school. But up until that,
Mm.
so
Because I'm glad you brought up self-talk real quick, Jim, because I was looking at your website yesterday.
yes, sir.
And for the viewers out there, like really quick, I would like for you to speak on this because I found it very interesting. Like, can you explain the concept of self-talk and how it can be helpful to an individual?
Well, yes. And now then, and I'll tie that into the rest of my little story here because most of the psychology that I studied and that I learned getting my PhD was crap. It
Mm,
was worthless. It was very negative. It was thinking about what we didn't want in life. And
Oh,
it was also uh, telling, it only identified people's problems. And
mhm,
I got into the field of psychology to try to figure out myself and to find out what made me tick. Why did I behave the way I did? And I didn't have the answers even with the PhD. So
okay.
here I'm out of graduate school, and that's when I started to really learn about life and understand, and all the things that I was taught up to that point uh, weren't that valuable to me.
mm.
So the self-talk came along. And as a matter of fact, we used to kid each other. We used to say, hey, if you talk to yourself, that's one thing. But if you start to answer yourself, that's another.
Mm,
And we did not identify self-talk. Now, let me tell you real quick what self-talk is not. It's not thinking positive. I'm not a rah motivational speaker that says, oh, just think positive and everything will be, all your problems will be gone.
mm.
As we say up here in Oklahoma, bullvine droppings. All right. I'll give you a second to think about that one. Bullvine droppings. Bullvines are bulls. Okay. So here we are. And here you've got a guest speaker on saying that positive thinking is worthless. Yeah, because what happens when we say, oh, it's going to be a great day, everything's going to be great, I'm going to help people. And then what do the little voices say inside of your head? And
Mhm.
that's the booger bear. And that's my specialty is how we, one, become aware of that self-talk. Number two, how we can identify it. And then number three, how we can change it, how we can stop it. Now, I was speaking at the medical center in Houston, and they had me back 3 or 4 times. And it was always the doctors and nurses. And I said, is it going to be doctors and nurses this time? And they said, no, Dr. Will, we have 35 schizophrenics that we want you to talk to today.
Mm.
And I said, okay, fine. Let's visit with it. Now think about that label. Those poor souls, they had a label. You're now a
Mhm.
schizophrenic. Why? Because I told you so. Because it's in the book. Because I'm a PhD.
You've already got
Bull.
an
Okay, these
impression in
poor
your mind
souls.
when you hear that label.
Exactly. Exactly. So here I go. I'm talking to these beautiful people and I tell them about self-talk, how fast it's going. It's going on 10, 20 times as fast as we can talk out loud. I tell them how negative it is. Most people's self-talk is 50 to 60, maybe as high as 80 or 90% negative.
Wow.
Now, when I say that, It's not, oh, it's a rotten day and the sky is falling. It's knowing and talking about what you don't want. And it's as crazy as you go into a grocery store with a list of things you don't want to get, or managing people that way. Here, Nate, here's 35 things I don't want you to get to at the grocery store. Now hurry up and get back. Oh, you go, Jim, I don't mind going to the grocery. And then if we manage ourselves, or if we talk to ourselves, or if we say things, so here we are, we're talking to ourselves constantly. And just in case any of you, or including Steve, is sitting there going, what is he talking about? Talking to himself, talking to myself. I don't talk to myself. I never have talked to myself. That's what I'm talking about right there. So we all talk to ourselves. It goes on around the globe, around the clock. It goes on constantly. And every country that I've ever spoken in and shared this information with, everybody talks to themselves. And it's interesting. People from other countries that have their dialect or their language, I ask them, what's your self-talk? Most of them say it's in English. It's in English. If they know English, then they talk in English. It's very interesting. So what is self-talk? Really? It's that little conversation. And the lady said, raised her hand. She said, Dr. Will, she said, are you talking when I was talking to the 35 schizophrenics? She said, are you talking about those little voices I've been hearing in my head all these years? And I said, ma'am, you just nailed it. And I looked at her and those poor souls that have been labeled that, and I pointed to downtown Houston where I was speaking. And I said, the difference between you and happy, successful, not that those people are happy and successful in downtown Houston, but my point was they have given you very, very, very powerful. The lady said to me, she said, are you talking about those little voices I've been hearing in my head all these years? That's what I'm talking about. So the positive thinking, having a positive mental attitude, it can go out the window and it's worthless, because what happens when you go out and you see a flat tire? What's your self-talk then? What's your self-talk since you've been growing up at a very early age? And your self-talk is what creates your identity. Let's call it your self-image, your self-esteem. Most people in this country and on this planet have a very low self-esteem. Women have a very low self-esteem because of the way that they've been treated by men and by other people.
Unfortunately,
and parents have been beating their children up physically and emotionally with their own careless talk to their children. And they're saying things like, you're an idiot, you're crazy. I'm dealing with my crazy children today. Okay. Oh, I'm just kidding. Bull. People have got to quit kidding about this, because every word that we say is powerful and every word that we say is important to a child's growth. Now, we can tell a person that we rescue from sex trafficking or from child trafficking, oh, you're going to be a victim for the rest of your life. You'll never be able to get over it. What voodoo did we just stick on them? And what we want to do is to not be I tell people that I work with, I say, I don't really care about your past. I'm not calloused. I'm not mean. But who cares about what has happened to you in the past? I'll listen. I want to care. I want to hear it. But more importantly is, where do you want to be? And where do you want to go? It's 2021. And if I put a voodoo on you saying that, oh, because of your past, you're never going to be able to be normal again. You're always going to have this terrible thing over your head. You're always going to have that's the worst thing we can do. So what we want to do is to help them and be very empathetic with them. We don't need sympathy. They don't need it. We need to give them support and love, and to let them know that they are strong and that they're going to be able to overcome this. And the thing that I say to them, Nate, is that if there's 1 million people with exactly the same background as you, and the same thing that has happened to 1 million people, would you agree with me that just one out of 1 million could overcome it and have a beautiful, happy life from here on forward? Sure, there's going to be some ups and downs.
Yeah.
And they have to agree with me because I'm saying just 1 out of a million. That's all we're looking for. And I say, why not it be you?
Mm.
Why not it be you? I don't care. Statistics, throw them out the window. They are a voodoo. And if instead of saying, well, 98%, 34, I don't care. I want to help the person that says, I don't want to be a statistic. I want to go forward and have a happy, beautiful life.
Mm.
And that's what we can do. And that's all centered. Every bit of what I'm talking about is around your self-talk.
Well, I'm wondering, Jim,
voice.
because something you said stuck with me when you talked about just that mindset and how, self-esteem and self-image. And, I mentioned earlier in the introduction that I think a lot of people had a hard year last year. Do you see any lingering effects from what everybody went through in 2020 in terms of self-esteem, self-image, the way people talk to themselves?
Absolutely. And I refuse to participate in that.
Mm.
Okay. And what do people, I get emails, you all do too, considering what happened last year and the horrific and all this, and they take, and I don't, no, I don't want to hear it. Okay. We had a fantastic year. Now, people that believe that it was horrific and it was terrible, they don't want to hear about my fantastic year.
That is so true. People who had a bad year, they don't want to hear about anybody's good year. They're like, oh, last year sucked.
No. Birds of a feather flock together. People with similar beliefs and attitudes are going to go buddy up next to him.
Yeah.
They're going to say, Jim's crazy. He thinks it was a good year. Oh, I lost 10 people. I'm sorry. But do you want to be in that? Because all of a sudden that becomes a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And if we don't want that, think about your grocery store list again.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't want tomatoes, do I write down don't get tomatoes? If I don't want rye bread, do I write down don't get rye bread? No, I simply think about what I don't want. Okay, I don't want to be depressed. I used to be depressed on Sunday nights. Why? Because in the first grade, I had a teacher that I didn't like. And Sunday nights, I started thinking about school. Mm-hmm. Fridays were great. Saturdays were great. Sundays were pretty doggone good until I had to come in and start doing my homework, my schoolwork. And here's the voodoo. Here was my voodoo. I had gone all the way through grade school, high school, college, even got my PhD before I slapped my head upside the head, myself upside the head, and said, "Wait a second. Do you want to be depressed on Sunday nights? If the answer is yes, then keep talking about it. And if the answer is no, then what do you want?" And Jim Will had to come to a realization. What do you want in life?
Right.
Do I want to be a victim? Do I want to feel like nobody can help me except the government? Do I want to believe that I'm helpless? Or do I want to be like these people? What do you want in life? Not what you don't want. Because as long as we keep thinking about what we don't want, it's like driving, looking in the rearview mirror and trying to go in reverse.
Well, Nate, since I am the official timekeeper, it's about time to wrap it up. But we'll be back for more another day, and hopefully we can finish it up with Jim.
Yeah, we definitely want to get more into this power of positive talk with Jim and Melissa. Like the one thing that I can definitely, well, there's a lot of things, but one thing more than any others I can definitely relate to Dr. Will on is being depressed on Sunday nights. But that's just because I'm a Falcons fan. So that doesn't have anything to do with school or negative talk. It's just being a Falcons fan, you get used to Sunday nights being depressing.
Oh my God.
Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise. Stop, listen, share. Everyone can make a difference. We are on a mission. Everyone should do something greater in their lifetime. Change the future. Be a proud member. Join us to support, volunteer, and donate.